My name's Deputy Inspector General of Police, Dr. Shehu, PSC. To talk about PRAWA, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, we have a very, very good rapport, good understanding, and good synergy between the police and PRAWA for many years. It is an institution that concerns primarily on respect of dignity and human rights, which the police are supposed to be part of it. And also capacity building to the police to enable them to perform effectively and efficiently in conjunction with the fundamental respect to the fundamental human rights as enshrined into the Nigerian constitutions of 1999. It's very, very beneficial, and at the same time in building capacity and enabling the police officers to perform credibly when they go out to discharge their duties. The police is an organization that deals with all kinds of human beings. When they come across a police officer, they deserve to be respected by police in ensuring not only their security and safety, but also in respecting their dignity and human rights. So in a nutshell, the training and retraining we are getting from the PRAWA is to enable us have police that will function and discharge their duties in a most standard and acceptable manner by members of the public. At this juncture, I want to say kudos. Welcome to the Nigeria Police Force online training.
Welcome, my people. What do we owe this visit?
Thank you, sir. We are the representatives of the students, Federal University, Isokpo. By my right are the representatives of the parents of the slain students.
Slain?
Yes, this is what really happened.
Yeti love, you look good. Thank you. Imagine how beautiful it would look like if I had ironed it. My dear, light issue in this Isoko is story for another day. Well, I think they don't know how crazy students can be at times. Derry, let's go have a breakfast.
Great Nigerian student! Great Nigerian student! Great Nigerian student! You see, today, we are not leaving here until the Vice Chancellor comes to meet us here. He needs to address these light, water, and poor accommodation issues. He either comes to us or we shut down this institution within 24 hours. Hello? 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 Am I on to Officer Mukhtar, Commander of the JTF?
Yes, who is this?
Please, this is Professor Agabi, VC Isokpo Federal University.
Ah, Professor.
Good afternoon, sir. This one you are sounding this way. Hope all is well. Officer, all is not well, officer. My students are at it again. They barricaded the old roads leading to the main campus. Now, I heard that the express is blocked. What? Don't worry, we are on our way now. Boys, enter the vehicles. There's a situation at Isoko campus. Scatter them. Make sure you move them now. Fast.
Sincerely, I felt your pain, but all the same, just take heart. I assure you of justice in this matter. Please, sir, that's all we ask for. Thank you.
Yes, we are back. And now we are continuing with our discussions around human rights, civil disorder, and terrorism. But we'll be taking first the civil disorder and human rights. The objective of this lesson is to create awareness on the human rights standard needed for policing civil disorder. And at the end of the lesson, the expected outcome is that you would be able to exhibit greater knowledge of the guidelines necessary for good practice in policing civil disorder and understand the responsibilities of police officers in maintaining public order within the framework of citizens' freedom to associate and demonstrate, as well as recognizing the rights of people to peacefully demonstrate, assemble, and to express themselves. Now, to introduce this topic, we want to make you understand or see with us the fact that freedom of peaceful assembly is a fundamental human right, and as such considered one of the cornerstones of a democratic society. Without people being able to communicate with the government in one way or the other, things may not be going well in a democratic society. Now, in a 2005 report by the International Advisory Commission of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, the Commission underscored the duty that police officers have to protect human rights, especially those duties which are required for political activity, characteristics of a democracy. I quote, "Democratic policing implies policing which is supportive and respectful of human rights, and which prioritizes the protection of life and the dignity of the individual. This requires the police to make special efforts to protect the freedoms that are characteristic of a democracy: freedom of speech, freedom of association, assembly and movement, freedom from arbitrary arrest, detention and exile, and impartiality in the administration of law." Laws have evolved that govern civil disorder and peaceful resolution of conflicts in Nigeria. Gathering in a crowd is constitutionally protected under the right of the people to peaceful assembly and association. Just look at Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. However, assemblies that are not peaceable are not protected, and this is generally the dividing line between crowds and mobs. The laws that deal with disruptive conducts are generally grouped into offenses that disturb the public peace. They range from misdemeanors such as blocking sidewalks or challenging another to fight to felonies such as looting and rioting. So we must at every point in time differentiate between peaceful demonstration and other activities that may be happening which is peace. and harmony in the society. Now, the right to assemble peacefully applies to all individuals and groups. Unregistered associations, legal entities, and corporate bodies, any discrimination based on grounds such as race, color, sex, language, religion, politics, or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status is prohibited. So you cannot discriminate against anybody or deny the right of that person to peaceful assembly by virtue of all that we have listed above. Now, international human rights principles make it clear that the state and its agents have an obligation and a responsibility to respect and protect all human rights. And when you talk about states, police officers are the representatives of the state. Now, what is the definition of civil disorder? There are several definitions, of course, you should know that, but let's look at this. Civil disorder is a term that generally refers to groups of people purposely choosing not to observe a law, regulation, or rule, usually in order to bring attention to their cause, concern, or agenda. The effective exercise of the right to protest entails cooperation between public authorities, security agencies, and civil society. Why have I said this? It is so because without that engagement, the people may not have the opportunity to communicate with the leadership. You vote governors in, you vote the president in, that may be the last time you have opportunity of talking to them, even on phone. So how do you let the government know that there is no light, that the road is bad, that there is no water? It's still by peacefully assembling and communicating this information. That is why the right to assemble peacefully, to express oneself, should be seen as ultimately necessary towards the maintenance of sustainable peace. The basic human right to assemble in groups and express oneself through peaceful mass demonstration is within the limits acknowledged by international human rights law, the natural product of a working democracy, and vital to the functioning of a participatory democracy. That is why police officials play a critical role when it comes to the maintenance of public order in such situations. Police, we understand, we know your challenges. You face a difficult challenge to ensure a balance between the rights of the people to exercise their legal rights and freedoms by peacefully assembling or demonstrating, and the rights of others, that is the non-protesters, not to be threatened, injured, or have their property damaged. That is a very delicate one. What we are trying to say is that police must find a way to balance the needs of protesters and that of the non-protesters, because they are all citizens. They all have rights. Now, when a police officer wants to use force to maintain or restore public order, he must follow the plan principle. And what does plan principle say? Plan principle says that whatever action you are going to take must be proportional, must be legal, you must be accountable to it, and it must be necessary. But if you arrange it well, it must be legal. Whatever action you are going to take must be in the law, according to the law. Then you must be sure that it is necessary for you to do that at that point in time. And as you are doing that, make sure that your action is proportional to what you are responding to. And finally, remember to account for every action you have taken. Now, persons organizing or participating in any protests or demonstrations have an obligation to respect the laws of the land. comply with lawful directives of law enforcement agents, and express their views in a manner devoid of violence or breakdown of law and order. So it is good practice for persons seeking to exercise the right to protest or demonstrate to notify or invite the police or other responsible authorities in the area in which a protest is planned. But don't get me wrong. I said it is good practice, not that it is compulsory. People are still free to protest without seeking any form of permission from the police or going to inform them. But we have just said it is good what? Practice. This will enable the agency to monitor the activities proposed, offer protection as may be required, and ensure that there is no breach of peace. Now, what types of assembly do we have? We have different types of gatherings that are covered under the right to peaceful assembly. These include meetings, rallies, demonstrations, marches, processions, parades, and the rest of them. Now, number one of them is peaceful assembly. An assembly should be deemed peaceful if the organizers have professed peaceful intentions and the conduct of the participants is non-violent. In this case, there should be presumption of peaceful intention and conduct, unless there is compelling and demonstrable evidence that those organizing or participating in that particular event themselves intend to use, advocate, or incite imminent violence. What this means is that as police officers, you don't go stopping a peaceful assembly with the excuse that it's likely going to engender violence. No, that's why there is that presumption. Now, we equally have spontaneous assembly. This one is the type that is done in response to maybe an action that came up immediately, and there is no time to go back and start planning and start informing the police. Even some people might be passing by the road and immediately form part of that same assembly and start reacting with others. This is equally acceptable. It's still part of the right of the people to respond to an incident or an event. They must not go and get a permission before they do that. Another one is simultaneous assembly. At times, some people may plan to assemble in a particular place, and while they were planning, another group will be planning at the same time. It's now, it's now about how do you balance this. Where notification is provided for 2 or more unrelated assemblies at the same place and time, both should be facilitated as far as possible. Do not be partial. Do not permit one person to do his own event and leave the other person. This normally causes problems during political campaigns. At times, you see that the sitting government tries to fix its own event to prevent the other party from going ahead. You must manage the two. If you are not able to, ensure that the first in time is given the opportunity. Now, let's look at the other one, counter demonstration. At times, some people will be demonstrating. We no go gree, we want light. Other people will try to come back to say, no, we have enough light. These people are just trying to cause trouble. But the point remains that the people that are demonstrating and the ones that are coming up with counter demonstration, they all have what? Rights. It's still about professionally balancing the rights of the two groups. Now, the critical issue of violence and assemblies. The right to assemble is a right to peaceful assembly, but it should be reiterated that the violent actions of a small number of people should be differentiated from the peaceful behavior of others. What this means is that you may have a peaceful assembly which will be joined by a few miscreants who would want to be doing a different thing. You don't go stopping that assembly because of those ones, because we have our laws taking care of the activities of such persons. Example are some people that will join that peaceful assembly and with the intention of looting provisions from people's shops. You have your laws, you have your criminal code, you have your penal code. Pick out those ones that came for unlawful purposes and let them be attended to according to our statutes. Now, let us look at the national laws relevant to this topic. Our laws have taken care of this, especially the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. We have right to peaceful assembly and association. This is covered in Section 41 of the Constitution. Right to freedom of movement, Section 41(1) of the 1999 Constitution. I would like you to go back and look at those provisions, Sections 40 and 41 of the Constitution. The National Human Rights Commission, in its Compliance Advisory Number 1, dated 3rd January 2012, asserted that peaceful protest is a duty of citizens and an essential characteristic of an open and democratic society. So you see that when people demonstrate, there's nothing negative about that. Now, we equally have rights to freedom from any form of discrimination. That is Section 42 of the Constitution. While Section 39 of the Constitution, sub 1, states that every person shall be entitled to freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart ideas and information without interference. So you should be guiding these people, guarding them, not interfering in what they are doing. What are the regional laws and conventions relevant to this topic? Example is the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It provides for right to freedom of expression and the press, and this is clearly stated in Articles 9 to 11. And these same rights are contained in our own Constitution. Now, the major international human rights instruments that equally protect peaceful association, peaceful assembly are the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which provides for the following: the right to hold opinions without interference, Article 19(1). The right to freedom of expression, Article 19(2). The right of peaceful assembly, Article 21. The right to freedom of association, Article 22. Now, Article 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is equally speaking to this, while Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights and Freedom still supports what we are saying. Now, the exercise of these rights is not without limits. That's a very important point to note. They can be derogated from. It's not like it is a right that if you have right to express yourself, that does not mean that you wake up in the morning and call me an armed robber. You are exceeding that right. You have right to freedom of movement. That does not mean that you pass through my parlor. That should be trespass. You can't be walking past my parlor because they said you have right. So these rights have their own limitations. We must always note that. Article 21 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights provides that no restrictions may be placed on the exercise of this right other than those imposed in conformity with the law and which are necessary in a democratic society in the interest of national security or public safety, public order, the protection of public health or morals, or the protection of the rights and freedom of others. So just as I have my rights, you have yours. You cannot be protecting your own and be abusing my own rights. There are equally circumstances under which We must all do certain things, limit our movement to safeguard our country, to safeguard our community against maybe a very big health challenge. This same restriction is captured in Article 11 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It provides that every individual shall have the right to assemble freely with others. The exercise of this right shall be subject only to necessary restrictions provided by the law, in particular, those enacted in the interest of national security, safety, health, ethics, and rights and freedoms of others. You now understand what we mean. We have at hand a practical example with the regulations that were made to curb the spread of COVID-19. That is in the interest of the health of the nation. So people were restricted from moving out. People had to obey the laws and stay indoors until the government deemed it fit to at least stop, put an end to that to an extent. Basic Principle 14 of the United Nations Basic Principles on the Use of Force and Firearms by Law Enforcement Officers is of particular importance for policing assemblies and demonstrations. And this states that, number one, in dispersing unlawful but non-violent assemblies, unlawful but non-violent, law enforcement officials shall avoid the use of force, or where that is not practicable, shall restrict the use of force to the minimum extent necessary. You don't use maximum force. Now, in dispersing violent assemblies, law enforcement officials may use firearms only when less dangerous means are not practicable. Only when less dangerous means are not practicable. I want you to balance this with your former Force Order 237, which has been modified now, reviewed. You now use force only to the minimum extent necessary and only under the conditions stipulated. In Basic Principle 9, law enforcement officials shall not use firearms against persons except, number one, in self-defense or defense of others against the imminent threat of death or serious injury. Threat of death, but it must be imminent, and there must be serious injury expected. Number two says, to prevent the perpetration of a serious crime involving grave threat to life. You see again, threat to life. First one talks about threat of death. Second one talks about grave threat to life. Number three, to arrest a person presenting such a danger and resisting their authority, to prevent his or her escape, and only when less extreme means are insufficient to achieve these objectives. And I would wish to add, if you are trying to prevent the escape of somebody that has committed a minor offense, and you go and use your AK-47, my brother, you may not be able to account for this. Because for such minor offense, maybe the punishment is punishment of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or up to 6 months. But when you go ahead and kill such a person while using your arms, you have given like a capital punishment for an offense that is ordinarily minor. So you have to be careful. Now, coming to the issue of permit or license, you remember I mentioned the fact that we'll be looking at the Public Order Act. The Public Order Act gave the police the authority, that the people should seek permission from them before, engaging in assembly or any kind of mass gathering. But in a Court of Appeal judgment on the Public Order Act in Abuja 2007, the court held that the requirements under the Public Order Act that organizers of processions, public meetings and assemblies must obtain a permit or license from the police before exercising such democratic rights is not necessary. It is not necessary because it is not constitutional. It is limiting the rights given to the people to associate and assemble as provided by the Constitution. That is why the Court of Appeal gave that judgment. And since after that, nobody has gone to the Supreme Court to query that particular decision. So it still stands. As police officers, do not say you are dispersing a crowd because they did not get permission from you. Now, arrest of suspects. It is also the opinion of the court that any person involved in the commission of criminal acts during procession or assemblies, that the criminal code, penal code act laws, and laws of the different states are there to take care of such acts. The person can be arrested and arraigned in court for trial. Thus, the court held that if the demonstrators or marchers breach any law in the course of expressing their freedom of expression and assembly, the criminal code is there to take care of such infraction. Now, what are the gaps in laws and practices and possible solutions to address this? One of the issues we have and the police officers have regarding this is that there is tendency for them to keep relying on the Public Order Act, which requires protesters to seek and secure police permits before they can demonstrate. One possible solution to address this issue is for the police interventions in protests to focus more on guarding the protesters than quelling the protests. It is the role of the police to secure, maintain, and when disrupted, to restore peace and security in the country. The restraint needed comes from self and group confidence in the police officers themselves. As officers, if you conduct yourselves well, the people will have confidence and trust in you, that they don't need to engage in any act that is wrongful. By having you there, seeing you, they have confidence that they are protected. A rights-based approach to public order means that police should not themselves escalate tension or provoke deterioration of the situation. You don't go shooting. Once you shoot, there will be commotion. Even when you want to shoot in the air, you are causing havoc because the bullets may choose to go where you have not sent it. Police should take the initiative and coordinate with the organizers of the demonstration and involve them in planning the marches so that they understand that they are jointly responsible for whatever occurs. When policing major public events, police officers require more than just an understanding of the legal rights and responsibilities of participants at such events. They also require an understanding of the rights, freedoms, and obligations under the law of those people who do not participate. That is, those that are not there. There should always be a balance between the rights of people to exercise their legal rights of expression and assembly, and the rights of those not participating members of the public not to be threatened, assaulted, or have their property damaged. Competencies such as tact, good communication and negotiation skills, as well as effective crowd management skills will aid the police officer in discharging his or her duties in relation to management of civil disorder. Other recommended strategies in the management of civil disorder are there for you. We have uploaded the PowerPoint. Go through them. There are several other things that you can do. But note, avoid violent means. Always negotiate. Always understand the situation. Always engage with the people. Always make the people understand that you are there to protect them. Make the people to understand that they can have trust and confidence in your activity, and that you are not discriminating against any group. Believe me, the people will always be there for you. The people will always listen when you talk. Now, when there is need for you to actually use the minimum force or the maximum force, whatever the case may be, remember your words of proclamation. You know this better than me. Engage with that. They will have equally given you the necessary steps to take regarding words of proclamation in the PowerPoints that you are seeing uploaded here. Go ahead, read, prepare yourselves, and be the good police officers that we expect you to be. Thank you.